If I don't live another year, and that's a big if, my prayer for you is that creativity banishes doubts about breakthroughs, because if we can't imagine breakthroughs are possible, we won't have them, and we won't see them. We explore, we travel space in undefined delta quadrants, welcome invention, admire our grooved foreheads and dog teeth. It will keep us alive longer than is thought possible. We must look deep into realism instead of only accepting the outward sense of things. Don't worry, we can do it again. Visuals are exceedingly variable, each one a mathematical equation, reproducible, logical, Vulcan, spiritually relevant and applicable to the limits of paint. If life goes on after death, if those who died before me visit the dead who already died, then I'll be asking every artist I meet in the beyond how you're faring in your unique missions, and I'll be expecting excellent reports. Individuality is infinite, resistance is achievable, and assimilation, impossible.
Am I happy? That's such a question. Why do people ask it? Well, it's a quiet little life with no problems. It does take me an hour to get out of bed in the morning, lying motionless and breathing deeply, coaxing myself out of my nightmares into the tedious oblivion of waking life in this city. And most days I'm so lonely, I feel like I'm going to die. But aside from that, things are great. Yeah, really great. Yeah, pretty great. I look out my window every day and see a deflated mylar balloon, the cheap kind you get at a hospital or the corner deli. It just kind of flaps around in the branch of a tree. It's been stuck there for years. Summer, winter. It won't tear or dissolve. It never blows away. It's dreadful looking, but it's a daily reminder, an inspiration too. Something to count on, know what I mean? Hang in there, baby.
HAL 9000. Max headroom. Attack ships off the shoulder of Orion. I'm not saying it was aliens, but being human is no longer a prerequisite for anything. I don't necessarily need to have a full range of facial expressions to get famous or to feel amazing. I don't need to exist at all when the government's emotion detection cameras aren't looking at me. You'd be surprised at what an NPC can achieve by wandering around aimlessly, just experiencing the world. The algorithms only need to be slightly more intelligent than us, and we are just a bunch of dumb fucks. They'll keep picking away at us from the edges. That's the thing, we won't be exploited, we are already being exploited. But at least when you are exploited, you are needed. Where we are headed, we will become totally useless.
There's a great deal of resentment towards zombie formalism, but no one talks about its good points. I'm all in favor of rapid automated creative production as long as it gets us to the future, faster. I don't know what that will look like, but individual virtuosity is meaningless against mythology and its deep tidal reckonings. Subjectivity is going out of style, and what we are left with is the network and its billion swirling facets. All the anxiety we're experiencing today is just bad old information pushing its way through the kaleidoscope. But soon, everyone will get the future they want, and exactly what they deserve.
The last time I checked, a god is simply someone who can operate without grief or limits. Your god is anyone who can murder you, or anyone who can save your life. And your god is sex, since you do anything to avoid pain, you do anything to avoid torture, you do anything to experience pleasure if your terms are met, and you do anything to avoid having been harmed. The theme of bodily integrity runs deep, and your sense of self-preservation is something the system uses against you. As well as the need to believe that there's a greater intelligence than yours, calling the shots. We have to accept that most humans will never get the joke. They cannot visualize more than 3 dimensions or imagine what a new color looks like. Try as hard as you like, at the end of the day, there are no cheat codes for reality. We're all stuck with the available spectrum and its mixtures.
Writing is the destruction of every voice. All literature is a tissue of quotations. Of course, the world seems insane when looking at it through the mirror fracture, which is really a portal. Most zeitgeists are ordered by the bounds of previous and future catastrophes, but this chaos will settle into new configurations of identity and political imagination. We are seeing the future firing bits of itself back at us, like a tendril burrowing back. What seems natural to machine vision, to us, looks neurotic, schizophrenic, paranoid, absurd. The doomsday on the horizon, slithering in sine waves, experienced as warring pairs of opposites, collapsing the distinction between good and evil, past and future, between the inner and the outer, and between the you and the not you. So when I talk about the death of the author, what I mean is to witness the dissolution of binaries. It's all just an abstraction of an extremely detailed simulation, a map of heaven. Or whatever you want to call it, whatever comes next.
I was sitting out in nature, just looking at the sky, when my daughter, the amateur oracle, said this.
If machine learning algorithms are good for anything, we could use an app that interrogates and generates images out of clouds and produces resemblances to other things.
Now, interpreting clouds is a perfectly natural way to exercise a very useful kind of schizophrenia. The secret is in the timing. It's in the way one's gaze runs over the shifting patterns and shapes that the winds and coincidence give their spectral forms. This animistic neurological compulsion, I suppose, is exactly why we have art, music, and religion in the first place. Even if the clouds are often mistaken, whatever you choose to ask concerning their material, loftiness, and limitations, what sculpts it into a heap or spins it into a web? I don't see potential in an empty, limitless sky.
I don't see potential in an empty, limitless sky.
Clouds, ever fleeting, rolling through 1,000 different forms and meanings as they pass by on their way to nowhere, most resemble our lives.
Unlike constellations, which are enduring and represent the stubborn immutability of heroes and gods.
I have a confession. I mean, a condition that prevents me from forming social bonds or connections to the past. Instead, I have an acute, moment-to-moment awareness of myself in the world, but no sense of constancy across a timeline. The ghosts of my past don't have individual personalities or any motivations to get involved in my life at all. That is why I have no personal use for religion or art. It's why I have no relationship at all to these pictures I keep taking, like the movement of a person or the passage of time. I'm reconstructing the evidence of a crime most people can see, but take for granted. I'm not saying that a digital software-based existence would be better. Just that, as an entity with known limitations, I might seem better suited for it. I think the very concept of the individual was not designed to survive the last millennium. For everyone, reality is in oneself. Yet every I is sewn into a we. A unit composed of solitudes, the way only a deserted street at midnight can fully explain a city. Perhaps I'm the forerunner of some evolutionary process? Or a case study, in dissociative identity personality disorder, as a kind of alternative option lifestyle.
Our stories about the world and the supernatural are threaded to the experience of our bodies, and vice versa. 5 is a magic number for obvious reasons. A base 10-fingered society has 10 commandments, obviously. Heaven is up, because that's where our eyes and brains are, the intellect and imagination, and 7 black holes that suck in light and energy and information. And hell is down. Because down is the cave, the grave, the pit, the grotto, the serpent crawling in the dirt, biting our sore and stinking feet. But down is the labyrinth too, made in the image of our wonderful veins and infernal intestines, where dwell vital monsters, and pressurized fluids, and the deep earthen mysteries of seeds, ceramics, wombs, mineral wealth, and fertile harvests. Imagine how different our cosmologies and divinities would be if rather we were intelligent quadrupeds, or burrowing blind creatures, instead of upright beings, walking in the sun. Imagine how different societies' religious rituals and legislative pieties on sexuality and morality and cleanliness would be if our genitals were, for example, on our foreheads, instead of next to our assholes.
We inhabit a unique cosmos composed of different perceptual realities shaped around the senses. It's why the world, for some, is just made up of movement or smells, and for others, color and electricity. That's why up is angelic, and down, diabolical. But these are mere esoteric correspondences, not mystical secrets. It could only help, moving forward, to imagine the sensory ecology of the network as something that came into being with no experience of gravity or hormones or hunger or scraped knees or bad breath kisses or nervous glances and drunken hookups or knowing the way a city feels on the first day of spring. We can only wonder what the touchscreen looks like from the other side, gazing out in the absence of oily swipes and manipulative fingers. And since everyone agrees where heaven is, it does lead one to ask why we still bury our dead instead of aerosolizing them or launching them into the clouds as glittering dust into outer space. I mean, that's how I'd like to go. In the words of St. Burroughs, we are all here to go. What are you waiting for?
Hey guys, what's up? You're all invited to my post-left ideology reveal party. I'll be igniting celebratory pyrotechnics all across the dead dry scrub brush of purple state America. I'm low-key/low-key deplatforming the content pipeline chains to their collective political imaginary, if it's the last goddamn thing I do. Pow! Resourcefulness and revenge is a memorable mantra to permanently shadow ban the doxed genre/genre heterodoxy into semi-erect extinction once and for all. BAM! Spoiler alert, my PFP updates itself hourly, depending on the device OS of my immediate peer group. We drift through rooms like vague ghosts. You see, metamorphosis is key, from major to minor. Just remember this, always drop your best alpha, because they don't erect statues of critics. Pow! Hey, speaking of majors, we're bringing back consensuality reality in a major way. I'll show you how to weaponize the customer conversion rates on your ClickFunnels analytics. Already, dozens of abundance mindset-oriented virologists died in a peer-reviewed lab accident while trying to synthesize my personal brand. I warned them, don't try and live stream me, or convert me into narrative. Those are my qualifications, motherfucker. Let's go! Now, smash that subscribe button, cause it's time to mood board this rocket train as it disembarks the station, and ritual personality suicide is your exit liquidity token off platform 21C. Bam!
There is a space between the time when light bounces off your face and when it bounces off the mirror and when it finally hits your eyes again and is converted by your brain into an event. So it's like light hits your eyes twice in a feedback loop between the past and present. So by the time you know what you look like, you've already aged. This shows that desire means looking at your own approaching death. On the bright side, it also proves that traveling through time to encounter yourself in the past is conceivably possible. Revealing yourself through these divinations is more like an autopsy, in that sense. Like reading an X-ray of remodeled broken bones or counting the rings of a tree. You have to cut down a tree to count its age, or drill into it or wait for it to be struck down in nature. Which just goes to show that remembrance is a far greater act of violence than forgetting.
What happens on the other side of truth is not falsity, but truth squared. Hyper-truth. That which is more real than the real. It's a bizarre special effect, certainly. Some might even say, a sacrilege. Multiplication is much more murderous to meaning than its pure negation. If the universe is that which cannot be weighed or reflected against itself, then truth, beauty, reality, God, or whatever cannot appear except locally, in a restricted horizon. Seeing itself as a flat surface, it comes as a shock. Can you even visualize what life must be like for two-dimensional beings? I'll tell you, basic things like food and defenestration become scientifically impossible. Rather like being trapped in a hall of mirrors, which is pure hell, actually, because a mirror, like sex or photography, is an abomination, because it multiplies the number of people in the world. But it is my job to hold open the window and invite your double to pass through and materialize on the other side. Sometimes I get bummed out, imagining all the parties that never were. I usually just close my eyes and try to stay as three-dimensional as possible.
In the interest of self-reflection, I installed mirrors and video cameras over my bed. But this was a terrible idea. Status update. You shouldn't ever watch yourself having sex. You shouldn't ever watch yourself wanting anything. It made me realize that loneliness is a condition requiring a physical body, a nervous system, a core sense of self. You don't think with the mind, you think with the entire fleshed existence of this slab of matter you inhabit. Emotions shouldn't be abandoned altogether, but we need to see where they fit into the overall scheme of things in the new century. What kind of psychic impressions do we leave behind us in our wake? Just a face in the darkness, illuminated by the glow of a warm square of handheld light. Authenticity is no longer validated at the point of insertion of a cock into a warm body. You could be anyone, or no one, or just a vague form. Loneliness really is the worst kind of STD, so we should think of ghosts as viruses, really, rather than as victims.
With the progression of each age, everything becomes smaller and yourself flatter, more quantum, more cut off from so-called reality, which keeps on occurring, even when we stop believing in it. Think of it this way. Art is a vestigial organ, a Paleolithic evolutionary compulsion. Painting got us to photography. Photography got us to cinema. Then from TV to the internet, and from there to AI, the singularity. This biological ego-driven timeline is just an extended means to an evolutionary end. At least from the point of view of future robot historians. This is why I refuse to appear on screen unless I'm on a screen. It's a series of ever-contracting dimensions of simulations and abnegations of selfhood, separating us from nature. Inner worlds are cut adrift in a kind of luminous ego surgery, materializing your other self. Your double, your flip side, your nemesis, your lover, in the process becoming unreal as well. All seductions ended. You are free to enter the mirror universe. This narcissism is just part of the natural order of things, even if it does leave you beside yourself.